Alright guys, so we're on chapter 38 of East of Eden. Here we go, chapter 38. From his first memory, Cal had craved warmth and affection, just as everyone does. If he had been an only child, or if Aaron had been a different kind of boy, Cal might have achieved his relationship normally and easily. But from the very first, people were won instantly to Aaron by his beauty and his simplicity. Cal very naturally competed for attention and affection in the only way he knew, by trying to imitate Aaron. And what was charming in the blonde ingenuousness of Aaron became suspicious and unpleasant in the dark-faced, slit-eyed Cal. And since he was pretending, his performance was not convincing. Where Aaron was received, Cal was rebuffed for doing or saying exactly the same thing. And as a few strokes on the nose will make a puppy head shy, so a few rebuffs will make a boy shy all over. But whereas a puppy will cringe away or roll on its back, groveling, a little boy may cover his shyness with nonchalance, with bravado, or with secrecy. And once a boy has suffered rejection, he will find rejection even where it does not exist, or worse, will draw it forth from people simply by expecting it. Crazy, huh? This is insane. Let me read it. And as a few strokes on the nose will make a puppy head shy, so a few rebuffs will make a boy shy all over. But whereas a puppy will cringe away or roll on its back, groveling, a little boy may cover his shyness with nonchalance, with bravado, or with secrecy. And once a boy has suffered rejection, he will find rejection even where it does not exist, or worse, will draw it forth from people simply by expecting it. You'll make people not like you already thinking they don't like you, is what he's saying. In Cal, the process has been so long and so slow that he felt no strangeness. He had built a wall of self-sufficiency around himself, strong enough to defend him against the world. If his wall had any weak places, there might have been on the sides nearest Aaron and Lee. If his wall had any weak places, they may have been on the sides nearest Aaron and Lee, and particularly nearest Adam. Perhaps in his father's very unawareness, Cal had felt safety. Not being noticed at all was better than being noticed adversely. When he was quite small, Cal had discovered a secret. If he moved very quietly to where his father was sitting, and if he leaned very lightly against his father's knee, Adam's hand would raise automatically and his fingers would caress Cal's shoulder. It is probable that Adam did not even know he did it, but the caress brought such a raging flood of emotion to the boy that he saved this special joy and used it only when he needed it. It was a magic to be depended upon. It was the ceremonial symbol of a dogged adoration. Things do not change with the change of scene. In Salinas, Cal had no more friends than he had in King City. Associates he had in authority and some admiration, but friends he did not have. He lived alone and walked alone. Part 2. If Lee knew what Cal left the house at night and returned. So if Lee knew that Cal left the house at night and returned very late, he gave no sign, since he couldn't do anything about it. The night constables sometimes saw him walking alone. Chief Heiserman made it a point to speak to the truant officer, who assured him that Cal not only had a record for playing hooky, but actually was a very good student. The chief knew Adam, of course, and since Cal broke no windows and caused no disturbance, he told the constables to keep their eyes open, but to let the boy alone unless he got into trouble. Old Tom Watson caught up with Cal one night and asked, "Why do you walk around so much at night?" "I'm not bothering anybody," said Cal defensively. "I know you're not, but you ought to be home in bed." "I'm not sleepy," said Cal, and this didn't make any sense at all to old Tom, who couldn't remember any time in his whole life when he wasn't sleepy. The boy looked in on the Fantan games in Chinatown, but he didn't play. It was a mystery, but then fairly simple things were mysteries to Tom Watson, and he preferred to leave them that way. On his walks, Cal often recalled the conversation between Lee and Adam he had heard on the ranch. He wanted to dig out the truth, and his knowledge accumulated slowly. A reference heard in the street, the gibbing talk in the pool hall. If Aaron had heard the fragments, he would not have noticed, but Cal collected them. He knew that his mother was not dead. He knew also, both from the first conversation and from the talk he heard, that Aaron was not likely to be pleased at discovering her. One night Cal ran into Rabbit Holman, who was up from San Ardo on his semi-annual drunk. Rabbit greeted Cal effusively, as a countryman always greets an acquaintance in a strange place. Rabbit, drinking from a pink flask in the alley behind the Abbott house, told Cal all the news he could think of. He had sold a piece of his land at a fine price, and he was in Salinas to celebrate, and celebration meant the whole shebang. He was going down the line in He was going down the line and show the whores what a real man could do. Cal sat quietly beside him, listening. When the whiskey got low in Rabbit's pint, Cal slipped away and got Louis Schneider to buy him another one, and Rabbit put down his empty pint and reached for it again and came up with a full pint. Funny, he said, thought I only had one. Well, it's a good mistake. Halfway down the second pint, Rabbit had not only forgotten who Cal was, but how old he was. He remembered, however, that his companion was his very dear old friend. "Tell you what, George," he said, "you let me get a little more of this here lead in my pencil, and you and me will go down the line. Now don't say you can't afford it. The whole shebang's on me. Did I tell you I sold 40 acres? Wasn't no good neither." And he said, "Harry, tell you what let's do. Let's keep away from the two-bit whores. We'll go to Kate's place. Cost high $10, but what the hell? They got a circus down there. Ever seen a circus, Harry? Well, it's a Lulu. Kate sure knows her stuff. You remember who Kate is, don't you, George? She's Adam Trask's wife, mother of them damn twins. Jesus, I never forget the time she shot him and ran away, plugged him in the shoulder and just run off. Well, she wasn't no good as a wife, but she sure as hell a good whore. Funny, too, you know how they say a whore makes a good wife? Ain't nothing new for them to experiment with. Help me up a little, will you, Harry? What was I saying?" "Circus," said Cal softly. "Oh, yeah, well, this circus of Kate's will pop your eyes out. Know what they do?" Cal walked a little behind so that Rabbit would not notice him. Rabbit told what they did, and what they did wasn't what made Cal sick. That just seemed to him silly. It was the men who watched, seeing Rabbit's face under the streetlights. Cal knew what the watchers at the circus would look like. They went through the overgrown yard and up on the unpainted porch. Although Cal was tall for his age, he walked high on his toes. The guardian of the door didn't look at him very closely. The dim room with its low secret lamps and the nervous waiting men concealed his presence. So part 3. Always before Cal had wanted to build a dark accumulation of things seen and things heard, a kind of a warehouse of materials that like obscure tools might come in handy. But after the visit to Kate's, he felt a desperate need for help. One night, Lee, tapping away at his typewriter, heard a quiet knock on his door and let Cal in. The boy sat down on the edge of the bed, and Lee let his thin body down in the Morris chair. He was amused that a chair could give him so much pleasure. Lee folded his hands over his stomach as though he wore Chinese sleeves and waited patiently. Cal was looking at a spot in the air right over Lee's head. Cal spoke softly and rapidly. "I know where my mother is and what she's doing. I saw her." Lee's mind said a convulsive prayer for guidance. "What do you want to know?" he asked softly. "I haven't thought yet. I'm trying to think. Would you tell me the truth?" Of course. The questions whirling in Cal's head were so bewildering he had trouble picking one out. "Does my father know?" "Yes." "Why did he say she was dead?" "To save you from pain." Cal considered. "What did my father do to make her leave?" "He loved her with his whole mind and body. He gave her everything he could imagine." "Did she shoot him?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because he didn't want her to go away." "Did he ever hurt her?" "Not that I know of. It wasn't in him to hurt her." "Lee, why did she do it?" "I don't know." "Don't know or won't say?" "Don't know." Cal was silent for so long that Lee's fingers began to creep a little, holding to his wrist. He was relieved when Cal spoke again. The boy's tone was different. There was a pleading in it. "Lee, you knew her. What was she like?" Lee sighed and his hands relaxed. "I can only say what I think. I may be wrong." "Well, what did you think?" "Cal," he said, "I thought about her for a great many hours and I still don't know. She is a mystery. It seems to me that she is not like other people. There is something she lacks. Kindness, maybe, or conscience. You can only understand people if you feel them in yourself, and I can't feel her. The moment I think about her, my feelings go into darkness. I don't know what she wanted or what she was after. She was full of hatred, but why or toward what, I don't know. It's a mystery, and her hatred wasn't healthy. It wasn't angry, it was heartless. I don't know that it is good to talk to you like this. I need to know." "Why? Didn't you feel better before you knew?" "Yes, but I can't stop now." "You're right," said Lee. "When the first innocence goes, you can't stop unless you're a hypocrite or a fool. But I can't tell you anymore because I don't know anymore." Cal said, "Tell me about my father then." "That I can do," said Lee. He paused. "I wonder if anyone can hear us talking. Speak softly." "Tell me about him," said Cal. "I think your father has in him magnified the things his wife lacks. I think in him kindness and conscience are so large that they are almost false. They trip him up and hinder him." "What did he do when she left?" "He died," said Lee. "He walked around, but he was dead, and only recently has he come half to life again." Lee saw a strange new expression on Cal's face. The eyes were open wider, and the mouth, ordinarily tight and muscular, was relaxed. In his face, now for the first time, Lee could see Aaron's face in spite of the different coloring. Cal's shoulders were shaking a little. like a muscle too long held under restraint. "What is it, Cal?" Lee asked. "I love him," Cal said. "I love him too," said Lee. "I guess I couldn't have stayed around so long if I hadn't. He is not smart in a worldly sense." It's a good book. "He is not smart in a worldly sense, but he's a good man. Maybe the best man I've ever known." So Cal stood up suddenly. "Good night, Lee," he said. "Now you wait just a moment. Have you told anyone?" "No." "Not Aaron?" "No, of course you wouldn't." "Suppose he finds out?" "Then you have to stand by to help him. Don't go yet. When you leave this room, you may not be able to talk again. You may dislike me for knowing you know the truth. Tell me this, do you hate your mother?" "Yes," said Cal. "I wondered," said Lee. "I don't think your father ever hated her. He had only sorrow." Cal drifted toward the door slowly, softly. He shoved his fists deep in his pockets. "It's like you said about knowing people. I hate her because I know why she went away. I know because I've got her in me," he said. His head was down and his voice was heartbroken. Lee jumped up. "You stop that," he said sharply. "You hear me? Don't let me catch you doing that. Of course you may have that in you. Everybody has. But you've got the other two. Here, look up. Look at me." So Cal raised his head and said wearily, "What do you want?" "You've got the other two. Listen to me. You wouldn't even be wondering if you didn't have it. Don't you dare take the lazy way. It's too easy to excuse yourself because of your ancestry. Don't let me catch you doing it. Now look close at me so you will remember. Whatever you do, it will be you who do it, not your mother. Do you believe that, Lee?" "Yes, I believe it. You better believe it or I'll break every bone in your body." After Cal had gone, Lee went back to his chair. He thought ruefully, "I wonder what happened to my Oriental repos." Fucking lovely. Lee's a fucking lovely. Everybody could use a Lee in their life, you know? Cal's discovery of his mother was more a verification than a new thing to him. For a long time he had known without details that the cloud was there, and his reaction was twofold. He had an almost pleasant sense of power in knowing, and he could evaluate actions and expressions, could interpret vague references, could even dip up and recognize the past. He could even dip up and reorganize the past, but these did not compensate for the pain in his knowledge. His body was rearranging itself toward manhood, and he was shaken by the veering winds of adolescence. One moment he was dedicated and pure and devoted. The next he wallowed in filth, and the next he groveled in shame and emerged rededicated. His discovery sharpened all of his emotions. It seemed to him that he was unique, having such a heritage. He could not quite believe Lee's words or conceive that other boys were going through the same thing. The circus at Kate's remained with him. At one moment, the memory inflamed his mind and body with pubescent fire, and the next moment nauseated him with revulsion and loathing. He looked at his father more closely and saw perhaps more sadness and frustration in Adam that may have been there. And in Cal there grew up a passionate love for his father and a wish to protect him and to make it up to him for the things he had suffered. In Cal's own sensitized mind, that suffering was unbearable. He blundered into the bathroom while Adam was bathing and saw the ugly bullet scar and heard himself ask against his will, "Father, what's that scar?" Adam's fingers went up as though to conceal the scar. He said, "It's an old wound, Cal. I was in the Indian campaigns. I'll tell you about it sometime." Cal, watching Adam's face, had seen his mind leap into the past for a lie. Cal didn't hate the lie, but the necessity for telling it. Cal lied for reasons of profit of one kind or another. To be driven to a lie seemed shameful to him. He wanted to shout, "I know how you got it, and it's all right," but of course he did not. "I'd like to hear about it," he said. Aaron was caught in the royal of change too, but his impulses were more sluggish than Cal's. His body did not scream at him so shrilly. His passions took a religious direction. He decided on the ministry for his future. He attended all services in the Episcopal Church, helped with the flowers and leaves at feast times, and spent many hours with the young and curly-haired clergyman, Mr. Rolfe. Aaron's training in worldliness was gained from a young man of no experience, which gave him the ability for generalization only the inexperienced can have. Aaron was confirmed in the Episcopal Church and took his place in the choir on Sundays. Abra followed him. Her feminine mind knew that such things were necessary but unimportant. It was natural that the convert Aaron should work on Cal. First, Aaron prayed silently for Cal, but finally approached him. He denounced Cal's godlessness, demanded his reformation. Cal might have tried to go along if his brother had been more clever, but Aaron had reached a point of passionate purity that made everyone else foul. After a few lectures, Cal found him unbearably smug and told him so. It was a relief to both of them when Aaron abandoned his brother to eternal damnation. Aaron's religion inevitably took a sexual turn. He spoke to Abra of the necessity for abstinence and decided that he would live a life of celibacy. Abra in her wisdom agreed with him, feeling and hoping that his phase would pass, or that this phase would pass. Celibacy was the only state she had known. She wanted to marry Aaron and bear any number of his children, but for the time being she did not speak of it. She had never been jealous before, but now she began to find in herself an instinctive and perhaps justified hatred of the Reverend Mr. Rolfe. Cal watched his brother triumph over sins he had never committed. He thought sardonically of telling him about his mother to see how he would handle it, but he withdrew the thought quickly. He didn't think Aaron could handle it at all. Yeah, Aaron just seems fragile. It's interesting, huh? He's so fragile that he's innocent. So innocent he wants to be celibate. So innocent he wants to lead a life as like a priest, you know? Crazy. Yeah, such an amazing chapter, man. It took 450 pages, man. That shit broke me. Hope you make it this far.